Discover the miraculous transformations of Genesis, 12 sacred lessons revealed for inspired faith. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, in the land of Ur of the Chaldeans, when the hearts of many were turned to countless idols and false gods, a humble shepherd named Abraham was marked by faith. Beneath the luminous Mesopotamian heavens, where the stars twinkled like promises unspoken, Abraham received a divine call, a beckoning that would alter the course of history. "Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you," the voice echoed, reverberating against the fabric of his being. His heart raced, holy anticipation mingled with trepidation, for he was to abandon all he had known for the unknown, but trials awaited this obedient servant. A grievous famine smothered the land, rendering the once fertile fields barren and dry. Desperation clawed at Abraham's heart, and fear tugged at his conscience as he resolved to journey to Egypt, seeking refuge from the desolate landscape. The weight of uncertainty pressed upon him, and in his turmoil, he crafted a deception to protect Sarah, his beloved wife. "Say you are my sister," he urged her, releasing a lie that hung heavily in the air. As they approached Pharaoh's court, shadows enveloped Abraham, threatening his faith, yet God, faithful to his covenant, intervened with divine authority. Plagues swept through Pharaoh's household, stirring the hearts of the king's men until the truth emerged like dawn breaking from night. "Restore her to Abraham," Pharaoh commanded, chastising the man who had tried to shield himself through deceit. In a moment of divine clarity, God revealed the steadfastness of his promises, cementing the truth that human frailty could never thwart his divine plan, but the story did not end there. Abraham's relationship with his nephew, Lot, crystallized amidst chaos. Drawn to the promising plains of Sodom, Lot soon found himself ensnared in the chaos of life gone astray. When news of Lot's captivity reached Abraham, a fire ignited within him. With unwavering resolve, he gathered his servants, not merely armed, but emboldened by faith. In a heroic display of divine intervention, Abraham reclaimed Lot, serving as a beacon of hope, embodying God's relentless grace. Yet darkness lingered, and as the seasons turned, Sarah remained barren. The weariness settled between them like a heavy fog. In the midst of their laughter, God emerged once again, asking the earth-shattering question, "Is anything too hard for the Lord?" Hope resurrected in that moment, a reminder that God's promise still lingered above them like a bright star. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select All Notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. As Abraham pondered the stars that dotted the night sky, a profound quest loomed before him. The near sacrifice of Isaac loomed large in his mind, a moment teetering on the edge of faith and obedience. Would he trust the one who had led him through trials upon trials? Would he surrender all, holding on to the promises whispered in the night? The anticipation of God's plan swelled, leaving the story poised at the brink of transformation. As dawn painted the horizon with hues of gold and crimson, a stillness settled over the land. Abraham, weary yet resolute, left the confines of his tent, gazing toward the distant mountains that loomed like giants, their peaks touched by the very hand of God. The weight of his thoughts echoed through the quietude, the promise of a son, the heir to his covenant, pulsated with life against the backdrop of stark reality. Will it truly be the son of Sarah? Abraham mused, as memories of divine encounters flooded his mind. The night God had confirmed his promises so vivid. "Look toward heaven, and number the stars, if you are able to number them," the voice had said, unfurling hope where despair had lingered. "So shall your offspring be," Genesis 15 verse 5. And yet, the years stretched like shadows across his soul, each one a silent reminder of the barren womb of his wife, and the trials that loomed ahead. But God, ever faithful, did not remain silent. One day, as Abraham sat by the oaks of Mamre, 3 visitors approached, clothed in divine mystery. They embodied both grace and authority, and the earth seemed to tremble lightly beneath their footsteps. Running to meet them, Abraham bowed low, his spirit ignited by awe and reverence. "My Lord," he spoke with a voice trembling, "if I have found favor in your sight, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree." Genesis 18 verses 3-4. With grateful hearts, the guests accepted his humble offering, and as they feasted, their words pierced the very heart of Abraham. "Where is your wife, Sarah?" one of the visitors inquired, and the question reverberated through the air, punctuated by an unseen force. "In the tent," Abraham replied, a wave of hope and doubt mingling in his heart. Then the visitor spoke again, "I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah your wife shall have a son." Genesis 18 verse 10. In that moment, Sarah, overhearing from the tent, burst into laughter, disbelief spilling from her lips. "After I am worn out, and my Lord is old, shall I have pleasure?" Genesis 18 verse 12. The laughter, however, was not met with rebuke but with a question that hung in the air like ripe fruit waiting to be plucked: "Is anything too hard for the Lord?" Genesis 18 verse 14. Abraham's heart leaped within him, the promise once again ignited his spirit, a flame rekindled by the Almighty. He felt the weight of time beginning to shift, and in that sacred space, the struggle to believe transformed into the resolve to trust. Days turned to weeks, and as the summer sun reigned over the land, a silent crescendo built within the folds of Abraham's life. The anticipation of unfulfilled promise loomed larger than ever, like a mountain on the horizon. Was this the moment he had awaited, or yet another divine mystery yet to unfold? As he pondered these things, the Lord reminded him of his promises: "I am your shield, your reward shall be very great." Genesis 15 verse 1. The faith of this humble shepherd was tested, yet through the deepening shadows of doubt, brilliant lights of hope shone brighter. Then it happened, amidst the mundane, the extraordinary broke forth. The ground shook as the heavens rejoiced. Isaac was born. The laughter that once held doubt now became a song of joy, as Sarah declared, "God has made laughter for me, everyone who hears will laugh over me." Genesis 21 verse 6. The stirring of a new chapter began, revealing a rich tapestry of faith, fulfillment, and divine purpose. Yet as eyes turned to the future, Abraham sensed the stirring of an even greater calling, one that would lead him to the ultimate test, an obedient act that would challenge the very fabric of his faith. For in God's sovereign plan, another layer of destiny awaited, beckoning Abraham toward heights unknown. What sacrifice might lie ahead in God's unfolding story? The heart of Abraham prepared to yield, knowing that true faith danced at the edge of the unknown. Little did he realize the profound impact his choices would hold, for they would echo across generations, shaping the very lineage of promise itself. After the joyous birth of Isaac, the air brimmed with laughter and the sounds of celebration echoed through the tents of Abraham. Days turned into weeks, where the laughter of children filled the spaces once dominated by silence and longing. Sarah marveled at the tender sight of her son, cradling him close as if her heart were mended with each beat of his breath. Yet, in the stillness of night, as the stars glittered like promises unfulfilled, a whisper lingered in Abraham's heart, a divine beckoning he could not shake. "Abraham!" The Lord would call, filling the air with an expectancy that made the very fabric of his being shudder. He knelt often at the threshold of his tent, seeking guidance from the God who had so richly blessed him. Then one fateful night, as a profound silence enveloped the land, the Lord spoke to Abraham, saying, "Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains that I shall show you." Genesis 22 verse 2. The word struck deep into Abraham's heart, reverberating like thunder among the hills. What could such a command mean? The air thickened with turmoil, as agonizing confusion churned within him. Isaac, the miracle child promised, the laughter of joy incarnate, how could he sever the bond of love that tethered them? Yet, amidst the tempest of his thoughts, one abiding truth remained: Abraham had learned to trust in the goodness of God. As dawn crept over the horizon, tinged with sorrow and purpose, Abraham prepared for the journey, his heart a tapestry of faith woven with threads of anguish. He called to Isaac, "Come, my son," and together they set forth, leaving behind the comforts of their home. The wood for the sacrifice lay on Isaac's shoulders, a foreshadowing of burdens yet to come. "Father," Isaac inquired innocently, "where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Genesis 22 verse 7. The question pierced Abraham's heart anew, yet through the tears of uncertainty, faith emerged. He answered, "God will provide for himself the lamb for a burnt offering, my son." Genesis 22 verse 8. As they ascended the mountain, the weight of destiny pushed upon Abraham like the clouds culminating in a storm. With each step, the very essence of his belief became a sacrifice of self, an offering of all he held dear. The altar took shape beneath his trembling hands, and with each stone placed, he felt the fierce love for Isaac battling against his unwavering obedience to God. "Isaac, my beloved," Abraham murmured, tears brimming in his eyes as he bound his son, placing him upon the altar. The moment crystallized in time, an excruciating testament to profound love and submission to the divine will. Holding the knife aloft, he felt the heavens pause in breathless anticipation. Yet at that moment, the angel of the Lord called from heaven, "Abraham, Abraham." Genesis 22 verse 11. The voice was vivid and clear, cutting through the haze of despair. Abraham answered, "Here I am." In the divine moment, God reaffirmed his promise, ceasing the act of sacrifice. "Do not lay your hand on the boy, for now I know that you fear God, seeing you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me." Genesis 22 verse 12. Abraham looked up, and behold, a ram caught in the thicket by its horns. God had indeed provided. He named the place "The Lord will provide," sealing a divine promise that would echo through generations. As they descended the mountain, the sun rose anew, illuminating the path ahead. It was not merely a test concluded, but an unyielding declaration of faith, a revelation that resonated through the ages. God can be trusted even in the darkest hours. Little did Abraham know that this pivotal moment of obedience would symbolize the ultimate sacrifice yet to come, where God would offer his only son as the lamb for the world, a covenant fulfilled in the deepest love. What greater mystery lay ahead, as the unfolding of God's sovereign plan continued, carried on the wings of generations yet to come. And it came to pass after these things that God tested Abraham again, saying, "Abraham." And he said, "Here I am." The Lord spoke unto him, commanding, "You shall be the father of many nations, for I have called you, and your descendants shall be as the stars of the heavens and as the sand on the seashore." Genesis 22 verse 1. Abraham pondered upon this promise, each remembrance filled his heart with assurance and hope. Days turned to seasons, and every moment he spent with Isaac deepened the legacy of faith he was to impart. The provision of the ram transformed their worship. The experiences upon the mountain became testimonies he would share around the hearth during the long desert nights. That in time, Sarah also found her place in the unfolding promise of God. She often gazed at Isaac and marveled at the miracle woven into the tapestry of her life. But shadows lingered, for the laughter had not yet multiplied. Yearning for more children lodged within her heart, and she approached Abraham with her concern and hope, saying, "Oh, that God would grant us more descendants." Abraham listened, and remembering the Lord's words, he said, "Fear not, my love, for the promises of God do not falter. He has declared our lineage blessed." Yet within him stirred a disquiet, the echoes of divine calling and the weight of future burdens intertwined in his spirit. In the days that followed, Abraham received a visitation from 3 strangers as he sat at the tent door in the heat of the day. As they approached, he recognized them not merely as men but bearers of divine tidings. He rose to meet them, bowing low in reverence. "My Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, do not pass by your servant." Genesis 18 verse 3. Bread and water were quickly prepared, a feast laid before them, the perfect act of hospitality and faith. The visitors, dining beneath the oak of Mamre, spoke the promise once more, "I will surely return to you in due season, and your wife Sarah shall have a son." Genesis 18 verse 10. Sarah, overhearing, laughed within herself, disbelief and joy mingling in her heart. Yet the Lord said, "Is anything too hard for the Lord?" Genesis 18 verse 14. The laughter of the impossible turned to the laughter of fulfillment, as hope rekindled in her spirit. In that sacred space, a covenant was reaffirmed. Abraham stood in awe, knowing that every promise of God was edged in sovereignty and grace. The glory of the Lord enveloped them, a testament that what was barren was now destined to flourish, for by the power of his word, life was birthed anew. Months passed, and indeed Sarah conceived and bore a son. The joy flooded their tent, and she named him Isaac, saying, God has made laughter for me, everyone who hears will laugh with me. Genesis 21 verse 6. At the weaning feast, Abraham offered a great celebration, inviting all to rejoice in the miracle birthed from despair. Yet in the midst of their joy, Hagar and her son Ishmael were present, now a reminder of the choices made in haste. Conflict arose as Sarah's heart became heavy once more, and she turned to Abraham, cast out this slave woman with her son, for the son of this slave shall not be heir with my son Isaac. Genesis 21 verse 10. Abraham felt conflicted, troubled by the plight of Ishmael, yet the Lord spoke unto him, Do not be distressed, assuring him that his promise would remain steadfast in both Isaac and Ishmael. With a heavy heart but obedience to God's directive, Abraham sent Hagar and Ishmael away with provisions for the journey ahead. He mourned for the boy, praying silently for their well-being as the distant dust of the wilderness settled around them. As the sun set and dawn rose anew, the story continued to weave the fabric of God's great plan for humanity. In the sanctity of trials and tests, the roots of faith dig deeper, intertwining with the branches of promise ready to bear fruit. Yet still, what deeper layer of God's intention remained hidden? How many more had to encounter His grace, and which paths would the faithful walk as they journeyed toward the fulfillment of divine covenant? The horizon shimmered with the hope of uncharted grace, awaiting those who dared to believe. And it came to pass after these events that God spoke once more to Abraham. In the silence of the night, while the stars sparkled like diamonds in the vastness above, the voice of the Lord pierced the stillness, declaring, Abraham, I have heard your cries for Isaac and will lead you as you walk in faith. With great reverence, Abraham fell upon his face, his heart brimming with awe and trepidation. Here I am, O Lord, he responded, longing for the assurance of God's guidance. The Lord said, Take Isaac, your only son, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah. There I will show you a mountain, and upon that mountain you shall offer him as a burnt offering. Genesis 22 verse 2. A heaviness settled over Abraham's soul, for the command was unfathomable. Yet deep within him resonated a faith that surpassed understanding, a belief that even in such loss, God could fulfill His promises. As dawn's light pierced the horizon, Abraham arose, gathering the wood and the knife, resolute to obey, trusting the God who had called him. They journeyed together, Isaac carrying the wood upon his back, his innocence shining bright. My father, he inquired, where is the lamb for the burnt offering? With a heart laden yet steadfast, Abraham replied, God will provide for himself the lamb for a burnt offering, my son. Genesis 22 verses 7-8. They reached the place God had shown him, a mount cast in the shadows of reverence. Abraham built an altar, arranging the wood with trembling hands, knowing that the weight of obedience bore the heart of faith. Isaac stood, watching, unknowing as he saw his father's face a mixture of faith and sorrow, love and desperation. As Abraham bound Isaac and laid him upon the altar, tears welled in his eyes, a profound sacrifice laid bare before the Almighty. He raised the knife, his heart wrestling with the promise given years before. What shall I do, O Lord? He cried within, clinging to the assurance that God's plan was not limited by human understanding. In that moment, the heavens were rent open, and the voice of the Lord called out, Abraham! Abraham! He paused, heart racing, and with a trembling voice responded, Here I am. The Lord said, Do not lay your hand upon the lad or do anything to him, for now I know that you fear God, seeing you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. Genesis 22 verses 11-12. Looking up, Abraham beheld a ram caught in the thicket by its horns, and joy surged through him. Provision, he whispered, God has truly provided. He took the ram and offered it in place of Isaac, proclaiming, The Lord will provide. Genesis 22 verse 14, As the smoke rose before the Lord, a covenant of faith was renewed. By myself I have sworn, declared the Lord, because you have done this thing and have not withheld your son, I will bless you and multiply your descendants as the stars of the heaven and as the sand which is on the seashore. Genesis 22 verses 16 to 17. The promise stood firm, echoing through the generations, for what God required was worship born of faith, a people set apart, a legacy destined to bless the world. And even as Abraham descended the mountain, he marveled what greater purpose lay hidden in this test. With the horizon painted in promises yet to unfold, he pondered, what further trials and triumphs awaited his lineage? How would the faith of Abraham echo through ages unto salvation? The silent path ahead was yet wrapped in divine mystery, beckoning both fear and anticipation. Would they trust the unfolding grace of God? The tale of generations yet to come would reveal the depths of his sovereign plan. And it came to pass that after these days of trial and revelation, Abraham returned to his servants with Isaac safe by his side, the weight of the moment clad in gratitude. With trembling hands, he spoke, God has provided, and I have seen the wonders of his faithfulness. The servants looked upon their master with awe, for they sensed the profound transformation wrought in Abraham's heart. As they journeyed back towards Beersheba, the air hummed with the sweetness of promise fulfilled, yet visions of a greater future danced in Abraham's spirit. Each step resonated with the truth that in surrendering his beloved son, he had become a father to many nations. In the days that followed, the Lord continued to speak to Abraham, affirming his covenant. I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall become the father of a multitude of nations. Genesis 17 verse 4. The promise coursed through Abraham like an eternal flame, connecting him to the depths of God's unchanging nature. Then came the day when the Lord visited Abraham once more in the heat of the afternoon. He was seated at the door of his tent, the sun blazing, when behold, 3 men stood before him. Recognizing their divine nature, he hurried to meet them, bowing low and inviting them to stay. My Lord, he implored, do not pass by your servant without resting under this tree. Genesis 18 verse 3. With humble hospitality, he provided water for their feet and a morsel of bread, that they might refresh themselves. The men accepted, and as they partook of the simple fare, they spoke unto Abraham, Where is Sarah, your wife? Genesis 18 verse 9. Abraham replied that she was in the tent, and then they declared, I will certainly return to you according to the time of life, and behold, Sarah your wife shall have a son. Genesis 18 verse 10. A laugh of disbelief escaped Sarah from within, for she had long since passed the season of childbearing. The Lord, discerning her heart, inquired gently, Is anything too hard for the Lord? Genesis 18 verse 14. The room was heavy with a divine promise, echoing in the depths of Sarah's doubt, awakening an ember of hope. When the men arose to depart, they turned toward Sodom, and the Lord pondered whether to hide from Abraham what he was about to do. For the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah had grown great, and their sin was exceedingly grave. Abraham stood before the Lord, resolute and yearning for mercy. Will you also destroy the righteous with the wicked? He pleaded, invoking the justice and kindness of God. Suppose there are 50 righteous within the city, will you destroy the place and not spare it for the 50 righteous? Genesis 18 verse 24. Throughout the dialogue, the heart of Abraham flickered like a lantern, reflecting the very character of God, an unwavering belief in his mercy. As God listened, the number declined through their exchanges, each step reflecting the growing intimacy between Creator and creation. Let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak once more, Abraham said, his spirit interceding for the people he could not bear to see discarded. In humility, he sought to understand the depths of God's love and justice, and what began as a negotiation transformed into a profound experience of intercession. As he returned to his tent, he marveled at the goodness of God, his willingness to relent, and how even in the face of judgment, the heart of the Lord pursues the righteous. Mornings would break anew with uncertainties and joys ahead, but deep within Abraham's spirit, the covenant was alive, a promise destined to reach the nations, revealing the grace of God that would one day incorporate all into his redemptive plan. What hidden revelations would unfold, intertwining the destinies of fathers and sons, woven by the hand of the Almighty? Thus the journey continued, beckoning forth a happy ending yet unseen, pointing even now to the one who would come to rescue his people eternally. And it came to pass, as Abraham returned to the place where he had spoken to the Lord, his heart remained heavy with the weight of what he had witnessed. He could not forget the tension between justice and mercy, the importance of the righteous in a sinful world. Each night, he lay awake, pondering the fate of the cities to the south, knowing that their cries had reached the heavens. In the morning light, Abraham summoned his servant Eliezer. "Gather the men, for we must prepare to journey into the land of Gerar." For the Lord had spoken to him, urging him to travel to the land where Abimelech reigned, a land rife with uncertainty but filled with the promise of God's unfolding plan. As they entered Gerar, Abraham instructed his servants, "Say that Sarah is my sister, lest the men of this land take her for their own." For he feared greatly, remembering the beauty of his wife, a beauty that could stir the hearts of men to violence. Yet, in his heart, the truth of their union lingered, a bond forged by divine authority. Abimelech, the king of Gerar, saw Sarah and sent for her, leading her into his palace. Abraham watched with trepidation, for he understood the consequences of his actions. Yet in the silence of his thoughts, God intervened. That night, the Lord appeared to Abimelech in a dream, saying, "Indeed, you are a dead man because of the woman whom you have taken, for she is a man's wife." Genesis 20 verse 3. Abimelech awoke in terror and called his servants, recounting the dream. "What have I done to the Lord that he would bring this upon me?" He lamented, for he knew not of their covenant. Casting himself upon God's mercy, he beseeched the Almighty, "Will you destroy a righteous nation?" In the early dawn, Abimelech arose and summoned Abraham, confronting him with the truth. "What have you done to me? Why did you not tell me that she was your wife?" Abraham, humbled, replied, "I feared for my life, and believed there was no fear of God in this place." But the Lord's compassion never faltered. Abimelech interceded for his household, offering gifts to Abraham as a sign of reconciliation. "Pray unto your God," he urged, "that he may heal the wounds this deception has brought upon us." Abraham prayed, and God healed Abimelech, his wife, and his female servants. The shadow of judgment lifted, replaced by the light of forgiveness. As the baby within Sarah's womb continued to stir with promise, the days passed, filled with the tension of expectation. Abraham prepared his household for what was soon to come, the fulfillment of God's word, a son of laughter and joy. And in the quiet of a starlit night, the Lord spoke again to Abraham, saying, "Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the appointed time, I will return to you, and you shall have a son." Genesis 18 verse 14. With renewed assurance, Abraham beheld the vast expanse of the stars, pondering the boundless blessings bound to descend upon him. Could it be that the trials encountered were but the birth pangs of the promises yet to be unveiled? Abraham sensed something profound on the horizon, a tapestry yet unthreaded, hinting at destinies entwined with the covenant. With unwavering faith, he leaned into the mystery of God's sovereign hand, wondering how the Son of Promise would alter the course of nations. What uncharted territory awaited them all? The heart of God continued to beckon, revealing to his servant a flame of hope that would shine across generations, weaving a legacy of grace and redemption unknown to man. And it came to pass after the sending away of Abimelech, that the Lord looked upon Sarah, as he had said, and the promise began to take root within her. In the fullness of time, the shadow of doubt bolstered by the longing years was swept away, for indeed, the Lord visited Sarah, and she conceived and bore a son, which she named Isaac, meaning laughter, for she declared, "God has made laughter for me. Everyone who hears will laugh over me." Genesis 21 verse 6. Abraham was filled with great joy at the birth of his son, fulfilling the promise God had made. The days of sorrow and waiting transformed into days of celebrations, as the tents of Abraham filled with the sounds of joy and the hearty laughter of children. And on the 8th day, as is the custom, Abraham circumcised Isaac, just as the Lord had commanded him. He was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him, and so, the wonder of the miracle stretched across the vast expanse of time, a testament to God's faithfulness. But as time passed, Sarah observed the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, laughing and playing with her son Isaac. It displeased her, deeply vexing her spirit, and she turned to Abraham, saying, Cast out this slave woman with her son, for the son of this slave shall not be heir with my son Isaac. Genesis 21 verse 10. This matter distressed Abraham greatly, for he loved both of his sons. Yet the Lord spoke to Abraham, saying, Be not displeased because of the boy and because of your slave woman. Whatever Sarah says to you, do as she tells you, for through Isaac shall your offspring be named. Genesis 21 verse 12. With a heavy heart, Abraham obeyed and sent Hagar and her son away, providing them with bread and a skin of water. He watched as they departed, feeling the weight of separation. The wilderness stretched before them like an unforgiving sea, and soon the provisions ran dry. Hagar placed her son under a bush and sat down a distance away, not wanting to witness the boy's death. In her despair, she lifted her voice and wept, and before the heavens were silent, the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven, saying, What troubles you, Hagar? Fear not, for God has heard the voice of the boy where he is. Genesis 21 verse 17. The Lord opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water, for the God of grace had not forsaken her nor her son. He provided sustenance for their journey, and the boy grew and dwelt in the wilderness, becoming an expert with the bow. God was with him as he grew, and he dwelt in the wilderness of Paran. Meanwhile, Abraham continued to walk in faith, his encounters with God deepening and his covenant with the Almighty unfolding. He made sacrifices and built altars, calling upon the name of the Lord, and it became evident that the blessings of God upon his household were more than material, they encompassed the very promise of nations. Yet, the Lord was not finished with Abraham, for in the quiet of another night, God spoke yet again, deepening the mystery of his plan. Take your son, your only son, Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah. Offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains that I shall show you. Genesis 22 verse 2. A holy tension hung in the air, as Abraham's heart quaked at the command. How could the son of promise be destined for such a fate? What divine purpose lay hidden in the depths of this trial? In that moment, the weight of faith clashed with the reality of sacrifice, weaving a narrative of hope that was to echo through generations. Abraham, resolute, knew that God's plans were beyond his comprehension, yet he pressed forward into the unfolding tapestry of divine destiny, wondering what would arise from this profound act of devotion. For in the heart of the covenant, there whispered a truth that could alter the epochs, resting in the assurance that God would provide the lamb. And so it was that early the next morning, Abraham arose with a heart burdened yet resolved. He saddled his donkey, took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac, his beloved son. He split the wood for the burnt offering, preparing for the journey that lay before him, the weight of the command heavy upon his soul. As they set out toward the land of Moriah, he kept the word of the Lord close, contemplating the depth of trust required in such a trial. On the 3rd day of their journey, Abraham lifted his eyes and saw the place from afar. The mountain loomed ahead, a silent witness to the covenant and the coming test of faith. In that moment, a profound silence fell over him, as though the heavens held their breath, waiting to see how the chosen one would respond. Abraham turned to his young men and said, Stay here with the donkey, I and the boy will go over there and worship, and we will come back to you. Genesis 22 verse 5. He spoke these words with faith that defied the comprehension of the appointed sacrifice that lay ahead. With Isaac at his side, they began their ascent up the mountain. As they walked together, Isaac broke the silence, asking, My father. Behold, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? Genesis 22 verse 7. Abraham's heart stirred at his son's innocent inquiry, knowing the gravity of the truth that lay hidden within his response. He replied in faith, God will provide for himself the lamb for a burnt offering, my son. Genesis 22 verse 8. These words, despite their sorrowful weight, held an assurance rooted in the promises made. Upon reaching the place God had designated, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood. His hands trembled, not from doubt but from the reverence that enveloped the moment. He bound Isaac, placing him upon the altar on top of the wood. The very air thickened with an intensity, as if the realms of the heavens and the earth strained to witness the unfolding of salvation's narrative. with knife raised, Abraham prepared to strike his son in obedience to God's decree, as a heart-wrenching prayer resonated within him. Just as the blade glinted in the sunlight, the angel of the Lord called unto him from heaven, saying, Abraham, Abraham. Genesis 22 verse 11. He answered, Here I am. Do not lay your hand on the boy or do anything to him, for now I know that you fear God, seeing you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. Genesis 22 verse 12. Abraham's heart soared, the weight of obedience and devotion collided with the boundless grace of God. Looking up, he saw a ram caught in a thicket by its horns, and the release of tension washed over him as he understood God had indeed provided the lamb. Abraham named that place the Lord will provide, Genesis 22 verse 14, and it was said to this day, On the mount of the Lord, it shall be provided. In that moment of divine transaction, the promise was reaffirmed, for the Lord spoke again, By myself I have sworn, declares the Lord, because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will surely bless you and I will surely multiply your offspring as the stars of heaven and as the sand that is on the seashore. Genesis 22 verses 16 to 17. Thus, amid the shadows of sacrifice, the light of God's provision was made manifest, a prelude to the ultimate lamb that would one day be offered for all humanity. What was unfolding on that sacred mountain was but a glimpse of the profound reality of grace to come, whispering through the ages, beckoning all to marvel at the mysterious weave of God's sovereign plan. And so it was that after Abraham's great test, his faith shone brighter than ever before. The echoes of laughter and joy filled the tents of Abraham, for Isaac, the child of promise, thrived under the loving gaze of his father and mother. The divine intervention on Mount Moriah had marked not merely an end to trials, but a beginning steeped in the richness of fulfilled promises. As the days turned into years, Abraham reflected upon the covenant made between himself and the Almighty. The Lord had sworn an unbreakable oath, proclaiming, I will establish my covenant between me and you, and your descendants after you throughout their generations for an everlasting covenant. Genesis 17 verse 7. And in this profound commitment, Abraham saw the fruits of his faith taking root within the lives of his descendants. Isaac, now growing in wisdom and stature, became the embodiment of God's covenant. His laughter and spirit mirrored the joy birthed from a womb once barren, a testament to the faithful God who can transform despair into hope. In their joyful gatherings, Abraham would recount the stories of God's providence, the fervent prayers answered in miraculous ways, inscribing eternal truth into the hearts of his family, and yet, in a moment woven with the divine hand, the echoes of the covenant extended beyond the immediate family. Abraham encountered the neighbors of Gerar, where the legacy of faith reached hearts brimming with curiosity. In these sacred exchanges, the Lord granted Abraham opportunities to bless and guide those around him, imparting wisdom and the knowledge of the one true God on earth. The promise of nations sprang alive as members of various tribes began to recognize God's faithfulness and began to worship alongside Abraham, but in the quiet moments, amidst the laughter cascading across the sands of promise, doubt still whispered. Abraham sought the Lord, praying fervently, O Lord, shall this covenant pass to only Isaac, or will your promises flow through many? God, gentle and approachable, spoke anew, saying, My friend, your seed shall indeed become a multitude, through you and through your offspring, all nations on earth shall be blessed. Genesis 22 verse 18, and so, the narrative that began with a humble shepherd transformed into a tapestry of divine purpose, forever revealing the steadfastness of God's hand in every joy and tear shed. Each moment of obedience, each test of faith paved the way for redemptive history to unfold. Abraham found peace as he realized that the essence of his covenant with God was not just for him, but for generations yet unborn. As he stood beneath the stars, the myriad lights twinkled like promises fulfilled, and Abraham marveled at the goodness of the God who saw every struggle and rejoiced in every victory. It became clear that through the winding paths of faith, God's plan would break forth, spilling into the lives and hearts of countless souls. When the day of Abraham's departure from this earthly realm approached, he gathered Isaac, and as they stood together, the bond they shared reflected a life enveloped in faith, enduring hope, and abiding love. Isaac, Abraham spoke with a heartfelt voice, The Lord has been my guide, and his promises shall continue in you. Carry forth this covenant, let it blossom into nations and flourish in love. With a heavy yet joyful heart, he entrusted the legacy of faith to his promised son. In a moment of divine affirmation, the Lord himself spoke unto Abraham yet again, "Fear not, for I am with you, guiding you into a promise held for eternity." Abraham rested in the peace of God's presence, knowing that through the sacrifice of faith, the legacy would revive, shaping generations who would seek his face. Thus, as Abraham's earthly journey concluded, he entered into the unbroken embrace of the Almighty, assured that the tapestry of which he was but a thread would continue to weave hope, love, and redemption across the ages. The heavens rejoiced, and though his earthly tent lay to rest, the promise their great legacy had only just begun. Dear friends, let this story of divine faithfulness inspire you as you embark on your own journey. If you were moved by the covenantal love of God, you need to subscribe now to stay connected to God's Word. Leave a like now to help spread God's truth through the algorithm, and comment your reflections on how this story has transformed your faith. Don't wait even one more second to share this powerful testimony with at least 5 friends who need to hear of God's promises. Together, let us illuminate the world with the hope and beauty of His unfailing love.